Welcome to this predicted paper from onmaths. This paper represents the best guess for the upcoming exams. Please use this paper in addition to your other revision. You can complete a unique version of this paper by going to our onmaths site. Onmaths is full of free content to help you prepare for your exams, such as topic-based papers, demon questions and mini mocks. If you like what we do, please consider subscribing. For us to create the smallest number, we need to pick the smallest digits at the start of the number. So the smallest digit is 3, then the next smallest digit is 4, next smallest digit is 5, then the next smallest digit is 8. But it wants it to be an odd number, and this is an even number. So we have to move that 8 forward one and have that 5 at the end. So the smallest odd number is 3,485. So with this question, we need to first of all count how many sides this polygon has. So it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So it's 10 sides. And we just need to know that a 10-sided shape is a decagon. Now we are expected to know all of the names of shapes between 3 and 10 sides. So if you don't know them already, just sit down and learn them. So if we do our place value grid, and so we've got units here, tenths and hundredths. Don't think we need any more. So we can put in our number, it's 5.87, and you can see here that the 8 here is in the tenths column. So the 8 represents 8 tenths. Multiples are just a numbers times table. So to write the multiples of 11, we're just going to do 1 times 11, 2 times 11, 3 times 11, 4 times 11, and 5 times 11. Now we're not going to do any more because it says it just wants the first 5. So I'm just going to write those down in a list with commas, separating them. So we're just going to start by writing the number a little bit bigger. So it says 2 decimal places, so we're going to draw a line after the second decimal place. Now all the numbers to the right are going to disappear, they're going to turn to 0, and because it's a decimal that just means we get rid of them. But we have to look at this number first. Now if this number is less than 5, we just keep the number to the left, so 8.17. But if it's 5 or more, then this 7 goes up to an 8. So this will be 8.18. This coordinate is telling us to go 2 to the left from the center. We go right when it's positive, we go left when it's negative, so it's 2 to the right. And then it's telling us to go 1 up. It's up because it's positive. So we need to go 1 up, and we get to the coordinate of B. So the coordinate we get to is B. And so we just look at the -2 on the x-axis and the 1 on the y-axis, and that is where point B is. So 55% is the same as 55 over 100. And what I can do is I can divide top one of the fraction by 5. And so that is going to equal 11 over 20. Now in total there are 20 squares here because there's 5 across and 4 down. 5 times 4 is 20. And if there's 20 squares and we're looking to shade in 11/20ths, it's just going to be 11 squares. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So for shop A, they're selling the rulers in lots of 3. And so we just need to get our 60 and divide it by 3 to figure out how many lots of 3 we have. So we've got 20. So if one bundle of rulers costs £1.50, then 20 times £1.50 would be £30. So in total it would cost £30 at shop A. We're going to do the same for shop B. Their bundles are 5 rulers, so we're going to do 60 divided by 5, which is 12. So we're going to buy 12 bundles at £2 each, and that will be £24. So the cheapest price is at shop B at £24. So how a frequency table works is the frequency tells you how many are in each group. So we've got 11-year-olds here, and the frequency says there are 4 11-year-olds. There are 10 12-year-olds, 5 13-year-olds, and 8 14-year-olds. So to find out how many there are altogether, we're just going to do the 4 plus the 10 plus the 5 plus the 8, and that will equal 27. So there are 27 children altogether. When a number is next to a letter, we actually have a time sign there. So I'm going to rewrite this question as 4 times A times 9 times B. What I'm going to do is put the numbers together. So 4 times 9, and then put the letters at the end. Now 4 times 9 is 36. So it would be 36 times A times B. And in algebra we don't put the time signs. So it's 36AB. So football is represented as a quarter of this pie chart. And so if there are 60 students altogether, we just do 60 divided by 4 to find a quarter of it, and that's 15. So there are 15 people who picked football. So the way these tables work is if you're looking for distance between Chauvin and Grill, you find out where the two of those overlap, and so they overlap at the 41. So you go down from Chauvin, left from Grill, and we get 41, and so it would be 41 miles between them. So we need to rewrite this fact here so that it looks like this. So I'm just going to focus on this fact, and what I'm going to do is divide 99 both sides. So we end up with 24 equals 2,376 divided by 99. Now you can see that that looks like that, which is kind of the point. So I'm just going to swap that around. So 2,376 divided by 99 equals 24. And I'm going to write this underneath so we can see the similarity. So 2,376,000 divided by 99,000 equals. Okay, let's have a look at what's happening between these two numbers. So this part here is multiplied by 1,000, and this part here is multiplied by 100. So what effect is the fact that the first numbers multiplied by 1,000 going to have on our answer? Well, it's obviously going to make it 1,000 times bigger. So it will make it 24,000, won't it? 2, 3. So that's that bit done. But what effect will multiplying the denominator have by 100 on our answer? Okay, so if you think about a half, if we times the bottom by 100, it becomes 1 over 200. Now, what is this compared to that? What is 1 over 200 compared to 1/2? Well, it's 100 times smaller. So when you're doing stuff to the denominator, you're actually making it smaller. So this times 100 is making our answer 100 times smaller. So we just knock off 2 of the zeros. We divide it by 100. So our answer will be 240. Let's rewrite this expression, but with a time sign in. So V times W squared. Now W squared just means times by itself. So we can rewrite that as V times W times W. Okay, so we know V is minus 10, so minus 10. And we know W is minus 4, so it's times minus 4 times minus 4. Okay, so when you multiply, it doesn't matter which order we do it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do these ones first, and I'm going to ignore that times minus 4 at the end. So minus 10 times minus 4, that's a minus times a minus, which is a positive, 10 times 4, which is 40, times minus 4. Now we're going to do 40 times minus 4, so it's a positive times a negative, so that's going to be a negative. And 40 times 4, well, 4 times 4 is 16, so 40 times 4 is 160. So it's going to be minus 160. Just like when you're simplifying fractions, you can't have decimals at the top and bottom. You can't have decimals at the top, at the left and right of a ratio. So we're going to have to get rid of this decimal. And the way we're going to do that is just simply times each side by 10. And that will leave 4, and that will be 60. Now we can simplify this further, because I can divide left and right by 2. So that would be 2 to 30. And I can actually do the same again. I can divide them by 2 again. And that would be 1 to 15. Now you might have just divided by 4, and that would also give the right answer. In fact, there's a couple of different methods that you can get the same answer with. So to do this question, you just need a piece of paper, a ruler, and a protractor. And the first thing we do is we draw the 11 centimeter line. And my one will not be 11 centimeters for you. It is on my screen, but because depending on what device you watch this on, will change obviously its length. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my protractor on this end here. So I've kind of got my protractor here. And I'm going to just have a look at getting 39 degrees. Now you've got to be careful because 39 is on the inside, and I'm just going to do a dot. So always look to see which one, the inside or the outside of the protractor, starts at 0, and the inside should start at 0 from this side. And I'm just going to draw a line that connects the end of that line and the dot, like so. Now just you can keep it going. Right, the next thing I'm going to do is put my protractor on the other side. So my protractor is kind of here, and I'm lining up the crosshairs with this point here. But this time I'm measuring on the left hand side, and I'm looking at 59 degrees, which will be here. Get my ruler. Now this time I can actually stop where it hits the other line. So keep going and then stop where it hits the other line. This screen's not perfectly calibrated, so it's difficult to do precise work, something like that. And then what you can do is you can get your rubber and just rub out the extra bit of line that we had to do. And so this is our 39 degrees here, and you don't need to label this on the diagram, but just so we know what we're doing. And it says when it's completed, measure length x. So I'm going to get my ruler out, and I'm going to measure this length here, this one here, and it is about 95 millimeters. So the answer for me is 95 millimeters. Now there is some level of precision. You're not going to get necessarily exactly 95 millimeters. When we mark these questions, we normally have an overlay and we put it over the top, and if it's roughly the same, and you can make small errors because nobody's perfect, and my diagram definitely is not perfect, but there are allowable small errors here and there. So what we do is we notice that to get this 10, we add the 3 and the 7. To get this 17, we add the 7 and the 10. And to get this 27, we add the 10 and the 17. Whenever we have this kind of sequence, it's called a Fibonacci sequence. You essentially add the previous two terms to get to the next term. And so what we need to do is just simply add the 17 and the 27. When you do that, you get 44. So our next term is 44. So we've got to first of all work out how many parts there are altogether. So oil has 21 parts, vinegar has 5, so altogether there's 21 plus 5, which is 26 parts. Now, how many of those parts are vinegar? Well, vinegar is the second one, so it's going to be this 5. So vinegar has 5 out of the 26 parts, or a fraction would be 5 over 26. So you do need to know the parts of a circle. So the full distance around the circle is called the circumference. If you've got a little bit of it, it's an arc. If you've got a line across it, that would be a chord, and the part that's kind of trapped in there is called a segment. Then if you've got a line across the circle going through the centre, that's a diameter. If you've got a line just going to the centre, if I can draw it properly, then that's called a radius. If you've got a line that touches the circle just on one point, like that, that's a tangent. But in this case, we have a sector. Mode just means the most common or most frequent, and modal is exactly the same. It's just the most frequent amount of coins we're looking for. So the students who had 3 coins in their pockets came up 15 times. Students had 4 coins in their pocket, well, there were 16 of them. There were 15 students who had 5 coins, 17 students who had 6 coins, and 12 students who had 7 coins. So the most frequent amount of coins a student has in their pocket will be 6, because it happens 17 times, which is more than any other amount of coins. So with this question, I'm just going to write it out a bit bigger so we can see what we're doing. And one of my rules is, if you've ever got a fraction or a set of brackets in a question you're trying to solve, always get rid of those first. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do myself a little grid to be able to solve these brackets. So we've got a 3 there, 6x and minus 11, and we're timesing them. And we're just going to multiply out the brackets. And if you've got a different technique to do this, that's absolutely fine, use that. 3 times 6x is 18x. 3 times minus 11 is minus 33. So we're just going to rewrite this as 18x minus 33. Now we are solving, so we're going to put our solving lines in. And the first thing I want to deal with is this take away 33. So we're going to do the opposite of that, the inverse, which is plus 33. And whatever you do to the left hand side, you have to do to the right hand side. So we're going to add 33 to both sides. We're left with the 18x on the left hand side because we've got rid of the minus 33. And on the right hand side, we've got 180. Next, we want to get rid of this times 18. So we're going to do that by dividing both sides by 18. On the left hand side, we're left with our x, and on the right hand side, we're doing 180 divided by 18, which is 10. So our answer is x equals 10. To get from the length of a square to the area, we square the length. To work backwards, what we do is we square root, because the inverse of square is square root. So we've got 196, and we're going to square root it to find the length. So we work out the square root of 196, which is what number times itself is 196. And you should learn them from 1 to 15, so you should know all of the square numbers from 1 to 15. So you should know that the answer is 14. So the length, therefore, is 14. So to work out what the perimeter is going to be the distance around the square. So if I draw a square out, we know that each of these lengths are 14. So it's just going to be 14 times 4, which will be 56. So when asked to describe a relationship, I always start off the sentence as the amount of, and I pick this one here, the X one, red sweets the amount of, and then I pick this one here, green sweets, and this is the only word here that changes. So what we do is we look at what happens as we're going to the right, as red sweets increase, what's happening to the green sweets. Well, the green sweets start really high and then slowly are going down and down. So the word here is decrease. Obviously the other option is that they increase. An increase would be if they ended up making this kind of correlation here. So whenever we have a scatter graph, chances are we'll be drawing a line of best fit. And so that's what we'll start off with, draw a line of best fit in. And it says we're looking for a height of the box, or an estimate of the height of the box with the width of 17. So 17 is here. So the width of 17 will be a line across, let's try and get this just right, line across there. And what we do is we draw a line down when it hits the line of best fit. Now looking at the scale here, this seems to be going up in 2s. And so this line here would be at 3. Another way of writing a to the power of 6 is a times a times a times a times a times a. And another way of writing a to the power of 5 is a times a times a times a times a. Now you might notice that altogether there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 a's that are being multiplied together. When you multiply something together 11 times, you get that thing, which is an a, to the power of 11. An easier way of doing this is just adding the powers. So when you've got the same base, which we do here because they're both a, you just add the powers together. So we have a set of vertically opposite angles here and here. And we're going to start with those because we have to find out what m is before we can work out what x is. And vertically opposite angles are always equal, so we've got 13m plus 39 is going to equal 2m plus 149. And we're going to get our lines in there because we're going to solve this. And to solve this, we first of all take away the smaller amount of m, because we've got m's on both sides. We can't really cope with that when we're solving. And so we've got a 13m and a 2m. So we're going to remove the 2m. We're going to take that away from both sides to start off. And so we're left with 11m plus 39. And we've just got the 149 on the right hand side. Next we're going to remove the number. So take away 39 from both sides. And we've got 11m is equal to 110. And then we're going to divide both sides by 11 to find out what m is. So m therefore equals 10. So we know if m equals 10, we can then work out x. And the way we can do that is the fact that this one and this one are both on a straight line. So they are both on this straight line here. So we know that they've got to add up to 180. So let's write that down. 13m plus 39 plus x is equal to 180 degrees, or I don't normally put that in for the working out, I always put that in for the answer. So we can solve this, or well, first of all we know what m is, so it'd be 13 times n, which is 130, and then we can solve this. So let's get my solving lines in. And so that's going to be 169 plus x equals 180. And we're going to just take that away from both sides, the 169. So we've got x equals 11. So the value of x will be 11 degrees. So the only options for the next card are for them to be higher, lower, or equal to 12. We already know that the probability for it being higher is 19% and lower is 28%, and all probabilities have to add up to 1, or in this case, because it's percentages, 100%. So to work out the probability that is missing, we're going to take away the 19% and the 28% away from 100% to see what's left, and that's 53%. So adjacent angles in a parallelogram add up to 180, and the reason for that is that we've got a set of parallel lines here, and both of these angles are within that set of parallel sides, so they're actually co-interior, interior, or allied angles, whichever you choose to call them, and so we know that they're going to add up to 180. So we're going to do 180, take away the 61 we already have there, which is 119. So our answer is 119 degrees. So if we look at the graph, this point here is it's the biggest. This one comes close, but it's not the biggest. So the biggest would be this one. And if we draw a line down from there, now we might think that it's enough to say Q4, but actually there's two Q4s here, so we must state the year as well. So Q4 in the year 2000. I'm going to start by just labelling the missing angles on each of the triangles. So we've got a missing angle here, which is 40, because we're going to take away 105 and 35 from 180. And we've got a missing angle here, which is 35 degrees. Again, taking away 105 and 40 from 180. So the tempting answer is to say that G is 2 meters, because they're both at the bottom of the shape. But have a look at where 2 meters is, and have a look at where G is. G is between 35 degrees and 105 degrees. It's the length between those two angles. Well, the 2 meters is between the 105 degrees, but the 2 meters is between the 40 degrees and the 105 degrees. So if we look at this left-hand triangle and see where the 35 degrees is, it's up here. So actually the corresponding lengths are this one and this one. And because they're congruent triangles, we know that the lengths are going to be the same. So we start off by working out what 100% of 240 is. Well, that's obviously going to be 240. And a nice easy one to start off with is 10%. We're trying to get to 21%, so 10% is always a good one to start with. So we divide by 10, which would be 24. And because we try to get to 21%, we'll need to find out what 1% is. And 1%, we just divide the 10% by 10 again, so it would be 2.4. And then we need to find out what 20% is. And 20%, we just double the 10%, so it would be 48. And so 21% is this plus this, because 1 plus 20 is 21. So we add these together, so 2.4 plus 48. Probably don't need to do this formally. Probably do this in our heads. So 50.4, but it says to increase 240 by that amount. So we need to get 240, we need to add the 50.4. Probably, again, don't need to show the working out for this, we can do this in our heads, but it's a bit easier to see what we're doing. So the answer would be 290.4. Here we're given angles on a parallel line, and the first thing we do is find out what letter they follow. And so I just connect the parallel lines with the angles, and it makes a little C. So if you look, it makes a little C. And C are interior angles. Now interior angles are a bit weird because they add up to 180. So to find x, what we need to do is take 172 away from 180, which will obviously be 8 degrees. And so it's going to be 8 degrees, and the reason is interior angles. Now some teachers call it co-interior, some teachers call it allied angles. Either one of those three is absolutely fine, you'll get full marks for. So we know that 171 is 3 times 3 times 19. And what we do is we just compare 171 with 342. And we know that 171 times 2 is 342. So therefore 342 will have the same prime factors as 171, which is 3 times 3 times 19, but it will also have a times 2 in there. So the answer will be 2 times 3 times 3 times 19. So for this question we need to understand the different types of graphs from different functions. So if we have a reciprocal graph, it looks something like this and like this. It could be the other way around and it could be distorted, but it basically goes down to a point along here. It goes to infinity and it goes to infinity along a point over here, and obviously those positions could change. Then we've got a linear graph. A linear graph is just any straight line, so just any kind of straight line, either up or down, and this doesn't look like either of those. Then we've got a exponential graph. An exponential graph just starts really small and then just really increases like that and just keeps going up. And here we kind of have that, obviously the other way around, it starts going down, but here it's actually going up, so it can't be a reciprocal graph. So the graph that this is, or could be, is a quadratic graph, because it's a nice U shape. So if we carry this on, it could be a nice U shape. It could also be a cubic graph as well. So it could go up and then down and then up, and that's a cubic graph. But the most obvious one is a quadratic graph. So quadratic function. Whenever you have north lines, they will always be parallel. So what we have here is we have a straight line going through two parallel lines, which are our two north lines. And therefore this angle here is going to equal this angle here. And the reason for that is that the two angles are alternate, they're Z angles. So we can say that that is 135, and I always like to try and show the examiner the reasons. So that's because it's alternate angles. And we know also that angles on a point add up to 360. So this red angle represents the bearing of A from B. And so to find this angle out, what we're going to do is just 360 take away 135. And the reason for that is angles on a point equal 360 degrees. And when we work that out, we get the answer of 225. So our bearing is 225 degrees. So here we're asked to find how many bread rolls we can make. We've got 89 kilograms and it takes 0.08 kilograms to make a bread roll. Something we can do is convert these into grams, or we can just keep it at kilograms, but I've got a neat little trick. And the trick is, if you've got a decimal when you're dividing, as long as you do the same thing left and right, you can multiply them by 10 or 100. In this case, we're going to multiply both by 100 because it will make the division a lot easier, because it will make this right hand side, instead of 0.08, it will just make it 8. The reason we can do that is 89 divided by is the same as 89 over 0.08. And as a fraction, we can just times top and bottom by 100. So it would be this over 8. So now we can do the bus stop method. So 8 on the outside. And in fact, I might use a straighter line here. There we are. And we've got 8,900 on the inside. So 8 into 8 go 1, 8 into 9 go 1, remainder 1, 8 into 10 go 2, remainder 2, and 8 into 20 go 2, remainder 4, and 8 into 40 go 5. Now it says how many bread rolls can we make. Now we can make 1,122 and a half. Well, half doesn't really count, so we're just going to say 1,122 whole bread rolls. Yes, we've got half a bread roll left over, but we are asked how many whole bread rolls can we make. So the symbol here basically means and the way I remember it is if you draw that symbol and just put a line through it, you can make the word and. So we're looking at the probability of getting something that is in A and C. So the only ones that are in A and C are this 8 and this 9 here. So we're going to just add the 8 and the 9 together, which give us 17. Now we need to then work out how many numbers there are in total, so that's all of them. So 4 plus 8 plus 9 plus 5 plus 8 plus 3 plus 11 plus 6. So we need the total, which is 54. And then we get the 17, and we put that over the amount in total, so over 54. So this question is asking us really to divide the 5 3/4 by 1 3/4. So we're going to do 5 3/4 divided by 1 3/4, because we're finding out how many of each of these towels, which is 1 3/4 meter, can be made when the total amount of cotton is 5 3/4. So first thing we're going to do is convert them to mixed numbers, to top-heavy or improper fractions, because at the moment they're mixed numbers and we can't divide or times if they're mixed. So we times the 5 by the 4 and add it to the top, which will be 20, and then add it to the top 23, and then do the same. 1 times 4 is 4, plus it to the top is 7 over 4. Now a little trick here is KFC. We keep the first fraction, we flip the second fraction, and we change the divide sign to a time sign. So we're going to keep this first fraction as it is, change that divide to a times, and flip the second fraction. Okay, whenever we multiply, we just multiply the tops, so 23 times 4, which is 92, and we times the bottoms, which will be 28. And now we need to convert this back into a mixed number. So first of all, actually we can simplify this, because we can divide top and bottom by 4, so that would be 23 over 7, and then make this a mixed number. So 7's into 23 go 3 whole ones, and then obviously 2 remainders, so it's 2 over 7. Now it asks us for the amount of towels that she can sew patterns into. Now the issue here is that she will do 3 whole towels, but then have some left over, but she doesn't have enough to create a 4th towel, so it's just going to be 3 as an answer. So I'm going to start just by writing out the equation, and I can put my lines in. Okay, we're asked to make x the subject, so we're going to first of all add 10 to both sides. In fact, I'm just going to move all this over a little bit so I've got a bit more space. Okay, so we're left with m plus 10 on the left hand side, and we've got 1/7 x on the right hand side. Now to get rid of the 1/7, what I can do is just times both sides by 7. So 7 brackets m plus 10 equals x. So x therefore would equal 7 brackets m plus 10, but it says expand your answer fully, so we're just going to expand the brackets. 7m plus 70. So it's really important, first of all, we make clear about how we convert things. So if I've got a unit in kilometers and I want to convert it into meters, then we know we just times it by 1,000. So 2 kilometers is 2,000 meters. But if I have something in kilometers squared and I want to convert it into meters squared, I actually times it by 1,000 squared, which is 1,000 times 1,000. Okay, so I'm actually times it by not 1,000, but 1,000 squared. So that's another 3 zeros. You can see here that that's 1,000,000. So we times it by 1,000,000. So 13 kilometers squared is going to be the 13, and then it's going to be times by 1,000,000. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So it's going to be 13 million. Now, it says here the farmer must pay 1 pence tax for every metre squared. So this is going to be 13 million metres squared. And so that's going to cost him or her 13 million pence. But the answer is going to be in pounds, so we just need to get rid of 2 of the zeros at the end. So it's going to be 13, 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's going to be £130,000. Integer just means whole number, so we're looking for all the whole numbers that satisfy these two inequalities. Well, the first inequality says that it has to be greater than 3. So the smallest number that is greater than 3 is 4. The second inequality says it has to be less than or equal to 8. So I'm just going to keep going until I get to a number that is less than or equal to 8. It can't be 9 because 9 is not less than or equal to 8. So our answer is 4, 5, 6, 7 and 8. So we're going to start by understanding that all lines form or can form an equation y equals mx plus c, with m being the gradient and c being the y-intercept. It says here the gradient is -2, so we've already got a bit of a head start with this, but we don't know what the y-intercept is. So we're going to use this first set of coordinates to work out what the y-intercept is. So y is -31 and x is 15. And we're going to use this to solve and find out what c is. So first thing I'm going to do is, well, just tidy this up. 2 times 15 is 30, so -30 plus c. And I'm just going to add 30 to both sides to get c on its own. So that would be -1 equals c. So c is -1. So we now know that the equation is y equals -2x minus 1. And we're told that the y is -37. And we're looking for the x value, which they've called w. So let's get our solving lines in. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is add 1 to both sides. And so it would be -36 equals -2x. I'm going to now times, or divide everything by -2. And a negative divided by a negative is positive. 36 divided by 2 is 18. And then obviously that gets rid of the coefficient of the x, so it's just x. So x equals 18. So the x value is 18 and the x value is the w value. So w is 18. So you can see here that the triangle has changed size. So the transformation we're looking at is an enlargement. And we need to find out how much it's changed by, so what the scale factor is. And so we've got 2 at the bottom here of triangle A, and we've got 4 at the bottom here of triangle B. And so we are going to times the 2 by 2 to get to 4, so the scale factor is going to be 2. And last thing we need is the centre of enlargement. And to do this, we're just going to connect all of the vertices, all the corners of the triangle, with straight lines. Trying to get it as precise as possible. And we've got the bottom left corners as well. And these are just going to be straight lines, aren't they? And we've got the bottom right ones as well, which will just be a straight line going the other way, if I get it perfect. There we go. And so where's the point they all cross? Well, they all cross at this coordinate here, and that is going to be our centre enlargement. So the centre enlargement is going to be at 3 minus 4. So let's write these numbers out. And the first thing to do is work out what the numbers are going up by. So they're going up by -3. They're minusing 3 each time. So we know that the number before the n is going to be -3. So whatever they go up in is the number before the n. Then what we do is we go backwards to find the 0th term. So actually going backwards, we would add 3 and we would find it to be 20. So whatever numbers our 0th term, because 17 is our first term, is going to be what we add to the minus 3n. So it's going to be add 20. So our answer is minus 3n plus 20. To find the pressure, we need the area and the force. And we're given the force in the question, and so all we need to do is find out what the area is, which will be the 7 times the 9, which will be 63 centimeters squared. And the force is given to us in the question, so what we can do is write down the pressure formula, which says that pressure equals the force divided by the area. Force is given to us as 2268. The area we've calculated is 63. Divide the 2 and you get 36. So it's going to be 36 newtons per centimetre squared. To find the gradient, we need to first of all find two coordinates we know. So I'm going to pick this one and this one. And to find the gradient, we're just going to draw a right angled triangle between them. And the gradient is the change in y over the change in x. But here you can see that we've gone down 3, so it's a negative 3, it's gone down 3, and we've gone 1 to the right. So that's going to be minus 3 over 1, or just minus 3. So the gradient, a different definition of it, is how far up we go when we go 1 to the right. So here we've gone 3 down, so it's going to be minus 3. So factorise means to put it into a bracket, and it looks like it's a quadratic here, but it's actually just a linear factorising because we don't have a number term. So we're going to just use one bracket for this, and looking at these terms, I'm going to focus first on the numbers. So 20 and 30, I can divide both of those by 10, and that will leave 2 and 3. So that's the numbers done. Next I'm looking at the t terms. So we've got t squared there and a t there. So we can divide out a t, but that will leave a t on the first term. And finally I'm going to look at the u, and there's just a u on both of them I can factorise out, and actually that just leaves nothing on the inside of the bracket. Now always when you do this, expand the bracket to check if you've made any mistakes. So I'm going to do smiles and rainbows. There's loads of different methods. So 10 times 2 is 20, t times t is t squared, and then the u, plus 10 times 3 is 30, times t times u. So we know we've got the right answer. So our answer is 10tu brackets 2t plus 3. So the thing we know about triangles is their angles add up to 180. So what we can do is we can say w squared plus 84 plus w plus 3w equals 180. And let's just put that together. So it's w squared plus 4w plus 84 equals 180. Now, with quadratics, whenever we're looking to solve, we want to have it equal to 0. So what we're going to do is we're going to take away the 180 from both sides, so it equals 0. So we've got the w squared plus the 4w, but we want to take away the 180 from it, which will give us minus 96 equals 0. So with quadratics, when we're trying to solve them, we need to put them into brackets. And to do that, we need two numbers that add together to make the 4 here and multiply together to make the 96 here. So just going through different numbers for 96, and you can try different ones. The first letter in the bracket would be w, the first thing in the bracket would be w. And I think it's going to be, well, it's going to be a positive and a negative to get that negative there. 96 is 12 and 8, so it would have to be, let's have a think, it'd have to be a positive 12 and a negative 8 to add together to make a positive 4, and 12 times minus 8 is minus 96, that works. And to solve, we look at the left-hand side first and get that equal to 0. So w plus 12 equals 0, and then solve it. Take our lines in. Take away 12 both sides. W equals minus 12. And we get the left-hand or the right-hand side. Get that equal to 0. W minus 8 equals 0. Lines in. Add 8 both sides. W equals 8. Now we've got two answers here, but it says value of W. Well, we can't have a negative angle. So we know we're looking for W to be positive. So the answer must be 8. So the way this formula works is we have M, which is the final amount. The 2000 here is our initial amount. The decimal in here is our multiplier, and the power here is the amount of years. So the way multipliers work is they are the percentage divided by 100. So if we go the other way and times it by 100 to make it back into a percentage, it will be 102.9%. Now it says what is the interest rate of the bank? Well, the interest rate is always going to be 100%. Well, this 102.9% is 100% plus the interest rate, which will equal the 102.9%. So the interest rate is going to be the 2.9%. You always start off with 100%. So if I put £5 into my bank, I've got 100% of that £5, and then the interest rate is on top of that 100%. So our answer here will be 2.9%. So we're asked to express TQ in terms of P and Q. Well, we've got another Q here, because all of these are congruent parallelograms, and we have a P there. So if we're starting at T and getting to Q, we can go along this path here and down this path here. So we're going backwards down Q, in fact backwards down 2 lots of Q, and then the correct way down P. So it's either minus 2Q plus P or P minus 2Q. So to find the probability of A and B, which is what that sign means, we're going to work out the amount of people, or the amount in A and B, and we're going to put that over the total amount. So A and B means it's the overlap, so that's going to be 7, and the total amount is all of the numbers added together, which will be 23. So our answer is that the probability of picking A and B is 7 over 23. To find an error interval, what we need to do is find the smallest and largest that a number can be. So I start by just drawing a quick number line, and we put our number in the middle, which is 89.6. Now we're looking to the nearest tenth, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to write down the next number down and the next number up in tenths. So the next number down would be 89.5, the next number up would be 89.7. Now the bounds, the upper and lower bound, the maximum and minimum number it could be before rounding, are going to be at the halfway points. So here and here. And so all we need to do is work out what those numbers are. So halfway between 89.5 and 89.6 is 89.55. And halfway between 89.6 and 89.7 is 89.65. So those are going to be our lower and upper bounds. But how do we show it as an error interval? Well, we put t in the middle because it tells us that t is representing the time, and we show it with inequalities. Now, the number can be 89.55, but it can't be 89.65 because that would round to 89.7. So we say everything that's less than but not equal to. What I'm going to start off by doing is rearranging this equation so that it kind of matches this one. So I'm just going to write it down. And we want the n to be -2. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put my rearranging lines in, and we're just going to add 10 to both sides. Now, we've already got this line drawn for us on this graph. And so all we need to do is draw this line. So we've got y equals 10x squared plus 8x minus 2 drawn for us. We just need to draw this line, which is y equals 10, and see where they cross over to find the solutions. So y equals 10 will be all the way up at the top. Let's just make sure I get it nice. There we are. I need to move that up a little bit. There we are. And let's read off the values that that gives us. So it comes down here, and it comes down here. So the values it comes down to are minus 1.6 and 0.8. And those are our solutions. So to answer this question, you need to just know the answer off by heart. There is a diagram that can help us actually get there. And if we just draw a right angle triangle and put the lengths as 1, not right angle here, we can use Pythagoras, a squared plus b squared equals c squared, to work out the fact that this is going to be root 2. Because it's an isosceles triangle, this angle here is going to be 45 degrees, and same with the bottom right one, but we're not interested in that. When we label it with our marked angle here, we've got the adjacent is here and the hypotenuse is here. Now we know from trigonometry that cos x equals a over h. The angle is going to be cos 45, and a is going to be 1, and h is going to be root 2. Now, this is a bit of a strange one with 1 over root 2, because we need to actually be able to rationalise the denominator. And basically what that means, if you haven't done surds yet, or you aren't doing surds, is you times top 1 by root 2. And so we end up with root 2 over 2. So if you ever see 1 over root 2 is absolutely fine as an answer, but if you ever see the answer as root 2 over 2, the two are actually exactly the same. So writing 1 over root 2 is fine, or writing root 2 over 2 is also correct. So here we're given a standard form number, and we're asked to make it an ordinary number, which is just a number you type into the calculator. So we're going to start off by writing the decimal, which is 6.2, and we're going to shift that decimal point somewhere that it will be the actual number rather than standard form anymore. First thing to point out is we look at the power. If it's positive, it means that our ordinary number is going to be a big number. If it's negative, it means it's going to be a very small number. Since this is positive, we know it's going to be a big number. So we're going to do 4 jumps, because there's a power of 4, to the right to make it a big number. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So the decimal point is going to be here. And we're going to fill in the jumps with zeros, so 0, 0, 0. So our new number is going to be 62 with 3 zeros, or 62,000. Now it's important to realise that we're actually shifting the numbers, not the decimal point, but it's a lot easier to move the decimal point in our working out. So we can write this as a fraction, so it would be 2.84 times 10 to the power of 11 over 4 times 10 to the power of minus 2. What we can do is split this up into 2 fractions, so 2.84 over 4 times 10 to the power 11 over 10 to the power of 2, or minus 2. Okay, so we're going to start by doing 2.84 divided by 4. So we're going to just do the bus stop method, so 4 on the outside, and we've got 2.84 on the inside. 4's into 2 don't go, so carry the 2 across. 4's into 28 go 7, and 4's into 4 go 1. So it's going to be 0.71 times, and then the rules of indices say that if you divide two powers of the same base, they're both 10, then you just take away the power. So it's 11 take away minus 2. Now the two minuses, the two takeaways, actually convert to a plus, so it would be 11 plus 2, which would be 13, so it would be 10 to the power of 13. Now we've got a bit of a problem here, because standard form must have a number between 1 and 10, and not including 10, at this position here, and this is obviously less than 1, so we need to convert this into standard form. So what we can do is just write the number out again. So I'm going to write this as an actual number, so it's 10 to the power of 13, so it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 11, 12, 13. Fill in the zeros. So it would be 7, 1 and all those zeros. And then I'm going to put it back into standard form. Now the decimal point will need to be here to make it 7.1. So it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So it's going to be 7.1 times 10 to the power of 12. Now, with a bit of practice, you don't need to write out the whole number. You'll be able to just know that if you convert that into 7.1, then you just need to take away 1 from the power. But if you're not sure, and it's not an unreasonable number like 10 to the power of 105, then it's just worth sometimes just writing out the actual number and being 100% sure that you've got it the right way around. So we notice with the simultaneous equations here, the coefficients of the x and the y's are different. So we need to make either the x is the same or the y is the same. I'm going to pick the y's. So we've got a plus 3 here and a plus 5 there. And so we need to find the lowest common multiple of 3 and 5, which is 15. So we need to make them both 15. So I'm going to write out the first equation again. And go get my lines in, because I'm going to times everything by 5 to make the coefficient of the y to be 15, because that's what we've decided to do. So we've got 10x plus 15y equals 40. And we're going to do exactly the same thing with the second equation. So we've got 3x plus 5y equals 14. Get our lines in. This time we're going to times everything by 3, because 5 times 3 is 15. So that's going to be 9x plus 15y equals, and then 14 times 3, which is 42. And so we're going to write the equations next to each other so we can do our simultaneous equation magic on them. So 9x plus 15y equals 42. So we're going to draw our circles in, and remember simultaneous equations are always working downwards, so we draw these circles in just to show which direction we're going. And we're looking at the signs of the y, and the reason we're looking at the signs of the y is because the y is the one with the same coefficient. Now, with these signs, if they are both the same, we subtract. If they are both different, we add. Now looking at them, they are both pluses, so they are the same, so we are going to subtract. And we don't just subtract these, we subtract all of them. So we're going to do 10x take away 9x, which is just x, 15y take away 15y, which is nothing, which is good, that's what we want, and 40 take away 42, which is going to be minus 2. So x is equal to minus 2. But that is only one of the battles, because we need to find out what y is. So we're going to substitute in that minus 2 into our first equation. So we've got 2 times minus 2 plus 3y equals 8. And we can get our lines in. So the first thing we're going to do is take away the minus 4. We're going to add 4 both sides, because we've got a minus 4 here. So we're going to add 4 to both sides. So we've got 3y equals 12. And then the next thing is we're going to divide by 3 both sides to get y equals. So y equals 4. And we can check that by substituting it into the second equation and doing 3 times minus 2 plus 5 times 4, and that does equal 14. In In this question we have a right angle triangle and we know two of the sides and we're looking for the third one. So that screams to me Pythagoras. So Pythagoras is a squared plus b squared equals c squared, with c squared being the hypotenuse. The hypotenuse is the one opposite the right angle, so this is going to be c. And we'll label the other ones a and b, it doesn't matter which way around they go. So a is 5, so it'd be 5 squared plus 12 squared equals c squared. 5 squared is 25, 12 squared is 144. And so 25 plus 144 is 169. Now that's c squared, so we need to solve here, and the way to solve is just to square root both sides. And so it would be 13 equals c. Because it's distance, we don't worry about the negative 13, so just the positive 13. So we know c is 13, so we need to know what the total length around the triangle is. So we're going to add the 5, the 12 and the 13 we've just found. When you do that you get 30. So we know there's 30 meters in total. Now it does say that we need 90 milliliters of paint per meter of wood. So the amount of paint needed is going to be the 30, because that's the total distance, times the 90, because we need 90 for every meter of paint. 3 times 9 is 27, and then put the 2 zeros at the end. So the answer is 2,700 milliliters. You can complete a unique version of this paper by going to our onmaths site. Onmaths is full of free content to help you prepare for your exams, such as topic-based papers, demon questions, and mini mocks. If you like what we do, please consider subscribing.